Hello, people again. Well, I know several YouTubers like to do the weekend review of their reading. I do a lot of reading. No, depends on the week. See, I have my job at FedEx. Is it when it's slow where I work on the belt? I have a belt going that way and I have a belt going that way. When it's slow on the belt, I'm reading. So I gotta like a job that doesn't mind you reading on the job as long as it doesn't interfere with your work. So I try and amuse a few of them when they see me sitting there reading while I'm waiting for the packages on the belt. First of all, I did a little more reading of Mr. Salinger. Don't get me wrong, this is a very good biography. Author. This is a very good biography. He's an interesting guy. Okay, he really is an interesting guy. I think he's a knucklehead at times, but yeah, he's an interesting guy. As I've said before, some authors are more interesting than what they wrote, and he's one of them. I like the short stories. The short stories are pretty good. And he didn't write. He did a lot of published short stories. He seems to have written a lot more short stories than he got published. But I like his short stories. I've only tried to read one of his novels, that's Catcher in the Rye, and I've already made my opinion known of that book. I'm sorry. It's a teenage angst book. Woe is me, life isn't fair, adults aren't honest, blah, 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 blah. It got to the point, I'm sorry, it was boring. It's just like, enough is enough. I get it. You're not happy. You're a teenage boy. You're 16, he's 16 in the book. But he's interesting. This book is worth reading. He's interesting. I mean, he was at the D-Day landings. He was in the Hurtgen Forest. He went through a lot in World War II. There's some other things he did too. But those are the two major ones I remember. I think the Battle of the Bulge. I don't think so though. I know he's in the Hurtgen, and I know he was at D-Day, and he was. The book is worth reading. It is an excellent book. His stuff he writes, depending on what it is. But he was interesting, and his experiences during the war really did shape him. But anyway, very good. It is a book worth reading. It is a very good book. By the way, see, I read a lot of books. I mean, you want to see my that's my shelf. That's my reading at the moment pile. This book's behind here too, by the way. That's it. That is my reading my table for books I'm reading at the moment. I didn't read all those in 1 week, of course, but I'm just going to talk about the books I've actually read this week, of course. I've talked about this book already, but I left out a lot of things. This book is very good about the horses, about the personalities, about the Nazis, about eugenics, about trying to create this perfect horse. The German guy is anyway. His name mentioned real fast. Let's see. Podolsky is the good guy, by the way. But I mean, it talks about the Spanish writing school in Vienna. It talks about the war. I'm almost halfway done. I'm not doing the World War II part. The World War is still being fought. The rescue of the horses hasn't started yet. But this is about the Lipizan stallions. This is an excellent book on horses, on the raising of them. It's an excellent book. That's all I can tell you. Because it does talk about a lot of the things in the 1920s and 1930s, the World War II. I'm trying not to give a lot away. This book is worth it. I'm not doing a very good job of reviewing this, but up to what I have read, I'm not that far in the book. I mean, that's partly why. I mean, the war is still going on, but it is a good book. My mom liked this book. It's a very sad book. It's a very good book, very sad, because of what happens to the people, the horses. I mean, this was happening in World War II, the Holocaust, eugenics, trying to create this horse by really thinking you could breed out imperfections in a horse. You can't. I mean, basically that's the same thing Nazis were doing to the people who were there. They were doing the exact same thing. They were just doing horses in this one. That is a beautiful animal, though. It's a very beautiful horse. Let's see. Find some decent pictures real fast. But yeah, I'm not even. I mean, I'm still in. I'm pretty much. This is how much I've read in about a week, which saying pretty much for me is pretty good. But worth reading. If you can find this book, it's definitely worth reading. I'm almost done. I read also this week. I'm almost done with my book on Sherlock, on Arthur Conan Doyle. This is another good book. I'm going to do a better review, probably either from my blog site or my YouTube channel. This is a book worth reading. Talks about his love, off and on hate of Sherlock Holmes. His other books, Lost World, and the other books he thought he was far better at than Sherlock Holmes. And he wrote a few horror stories. He talks about his Boer War experiences, his World War I, his spiritualism, his involvement in spiritualism, his defense of that Indian fellow who was accused of killing or blinding or killing horses. I'm doing this by memory. Let's see if it tells me real fast. I mean, it is a good book. He was very British. Let's just say he was a very British man. He was Scottish. I know he was from Scotland, but he was very British. I mean, this book does take up a lot of time of his spiritualism part, which I know took up a lot of his latter half of his life. It's like, I get it. And it talks about his experiences with Houdini, his friendship with Houdini, and why that ended. It talks about his mother and his first wife, and then his second wife. And it is a good book. Don't get me wrong. It is a good book. I like Sherlock Holmes. Who doesn't? But it's a good book. I mean, it's, if you like Sherlock Holmes, I'd buy it, I'd read it. I have his complete Sherlock Holmes, so I have a few other books on Sherlock Holmes as well. Let's see. Now this one, I'll have to show you, The Scientist. This book is pretty good, actually. History of science told through the lives of the great inventors from the Renaissance to the modern age. I mean, this is a very well written book on the lives of scientists known and scientists not really known about. Like it begins with Copernicus, if I remember correctly. It's with Kepler, Copernicus, Galileo, so on and so forth. Excellent book on science history, and I like science. Science is cool. I do enjoy reading about science. I mean, it's a good book on the. I have discovered a lot of things I didn't know, and how many other people really were involved, and all these great names you've heard of have these other names I've never heard of, which is to me fun. Because this is why I like reading books, and I like reading things like this because it'll tell me about people I've never heard of. These small little snippets of life that just put science forward, who started things, who had ideas. Science is cool. But anyway, I've been reading this book the last 2 days. I'm about halfway done, despite the fact that I started this book last year. Yeah, I know. I'm very bad at. See, my problem is I can't. I have over 30 odd books over here, people. It is a miracle I get anything done in a decent time when it comes to books. I'm constantly distracting myself with new books and more books. But anyway, excellent book. In this ambitious, wonderfully readable book, John Gribbins tells the stories of the people who have transformed science and of the times in which they lived and worked. He does a very good job. He begins with Copernicus during the Renaissance, when science replaced mysticism as a means of explaining the world, and it continues through the centuries, creating an unbroken genealogy of not only the greatest, but also some of the more obscure yet important names of Western science. Which is true. He does so with a lot of people I never even heard of. A dot-to-dot line linking amateur genius to genius. That was a sentence. Names of Western science. A dot-to-dot line linking amateurs to geniuses and accidental discoveries to brilliant deduction. Scientist brings new life into such venerable icons as Galileo, Isaac Newton, Albert Einstein, and Linus Pauling, as well as lesser lights whose stories have been undeservedly neglected. It's a very good book. Forget about the names you know. If you want to learn about people you've never heard of, this is the book for you. If you want to learn science history, I love science history. Right, anyway, let's see. What else did I read this week? Anything else? I haven't read any short stories this week. It's on that shelf anyway. Oh, did I? I don't remember. I'm gonna bring it up anyway. Fortress Without a Roof, I think I read on Tuesday when I did something else. The Allied bombing of the Third Reich, and vivid eyewitness history of the Sky Offensive and end of Hitler's dream. This takes place from the beginning of the war to the end of the war. It's a St. Martin's military classic. It's not a bad little book. It's a good book. If you like bomb, aircraft warfare and the bombing campaign and everything else, it's a good book. Well, those are the books I read this week. Sorry, there was no fiction. I don't think I read any fiction this week. I kept thinking about it before I did this review. I don't think I did. If I did, I don't remember. But that's okay. I do not think I read any fiction this week or novel this week. No, I did not. I'm pretty sure I did not. But anyway. I mean, I like reading. I'll probably do this at least once a week, at least I'm going to try to. It may not be for everybody, but I like talking about books, and I try to make them interesting. I try to make them worth reading, have other people find them and worth reading. And hopefully I'm not too bad at least getting some people to want to read them, because I love books. I don't have an e-reader. I don't do books on I don't have a tablet. I just have books and the smell of books. Aye, lad. I keep thinking there was something, well, I guess not. I ain't gonna worry about it right now. Not a big deal. Well, people, like, share, comment, subscribe. Behave yourselves, because I'm not going to. I'm going to try to do another video at 3:30. It's supposed to rain today. So far it hasn't. It's supposed to be wet next few days. Anyway, later.